Don't. The fact that you have the strap marks on your frail little wrist.
Well, this is what happens when you're at peak performance of athletic activity. I know
you're injured. That's not peak performance. You're feeble.
I'm not injured now because I was attempting peak performance. I meant like I need a higher table so my knee can fit under. Speaking of, Hefty Ben is not back. Hefty Ben is never making an appearance. We'll never be on that couch video again, which you're going to
next week,
because it means all of the ankles will never be in there. So there'll never be any more Mankles shots. Mankles is dead. Okay, Jay, welcome back to Sharp Stories, everyone. And today we're actually going to talk in two parts, aren't we, Jay?
I still just can't get over this.
The mic?
Yeah.
It's a mic. What is there to get over?
Two parts. Let's go.
Wow. Okay, the first part is who are the buyers and sellers?
Who are the buyers and sellers?
I feel like
a spectacle. You are one.
No, I feel like you're just taking advantage of me or something, like violated.
This is totally unnecessary.
That's the word I'm looking at. Nonetheless, yeah, I have a microphone, everyone.
Ben needed to set himself apart, so he needed this big stick in front of him that you're not using properly, as usual.
Too many jokes.
Lean into it.
Too many jokes. Ow, can you hear me? Fine? See, okay. I'm absolutely fine.
Okay, let's go. Two parts.
So what do the buyers and sellers look like at the moment that are in the market? And because I do think it's a specific type of people, there are always outliers, of course. But
a specific type of people boxing people in. This will get interesting. It could get political.
Any chance you to get political? Shitting on Justin Trudeau and depreciation reports. The three main interests of J. Gordon McInnes, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't have anything to do with any of that.
So no, first of all, who's actually buying out there and who's actually selling? So let's look at the seller side of things first. There's a lot more, 28% I think was the latest figure, year over year, more inventory this year than last year. So there's more inventory slowly coming to market. I think people assumed that that was going to be more as we start heading into the fall period. I think the reason why it's not is just from a seller perspective, anything you pretty much sold was going for over ask. Multiple offers, subject free. It was the easiest time to sell property for a high price. And when it came to the buying side, your interest rates were ridiculously low.
But usually when markets shift, which obviously it did in March, you see buyers come off and sellers come on. Mm-hmm. And there's always that typical ebb and flow supply and demand. But this time we've seen probably in the most assumed environment that sellers would be more motivated with the cost of money going up and all this sort of stuff. A lot of hesitancy on sellers going to market and actually selling. We're seeing people go to market and test and then pull off, but we're not seeing a huge amount of urgency from sellers coming on, which most would say or think, well, your rate's coming up, your term's coming up, so why don't you get out if you're going to be squeezed? We're not seeing that, which I think is the surprising part.
Well, and I'm not too surprised by this because it makes sense when you look at it. Like, as a seller, everything was lined up for you perfectly to sell for a long time. So if you weren't motivated to sell during those times, why would you be motivated to sell now? Especially when you've lost money on paper versus what the peak was. Interest rates are higher. Like the climate is different now, and when it was completely in your favor, you still didn't want to go for it. The people who I do think that we're seeing out on the market right now are those who are upgrading, so they're upsizing. Maybe these are people who have condos or townhouses, they've owned them for a number of years, so the peak per se doesn't really matter because they're still well up, and they're also getting a discount based on upsizing what the prices were, say, like the start of this year. In some places, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, by possibly 25%.
Yeah, as we discussed before, there's definitely that opportunity, but I think any sort of lateral moves are definitely off the table. And I think the only point of leverage, as we've discussed in the past couple of weeks, is that buy up. Now, if people are doing it, there's obviously uncertainty out there generally speaking, so that'll pull a lot of people off the table as well, but that is the one leverage play, I think, right now, which is the clearest.
Yeah, and I think you'll see there'll be a lot more days on market, which we're already seeing in the numbers, and there'll be a lot more price change differences coming. And I don't necessarily think that that's because anyone's trying anything shady, but this happens all the time. But in a changing market, it happens so much where a realtor, we can go in and we can do a listing presentation and we can say, we think your home's worth 2 million. And they're like, no, I think it's worth 2.3 million. And it's okay, then there's going to be a little bit of a play. Try 2.3 million, doesn't sell, builds up days on market, they adjust, and then it kind of comes around to the right kind of price point eventually after some time. And that's partly because there's always the FOMO, like I don't want to miss out on the higher price. I still think it's worth more than what it is. So I think before, when people were seeing that, especially over the last 18 months, people were very, why is this not sold? Why has this gone through multiple price reduction?
Why would they do this?
And they want to stay away from it. I don't think that that's as much of a fear, or shouldn't be as much of a fear in the market at the moment because of the shift in which we're going through.
Well, typically it's not a thing to worry about other than the fact that the sellers are being unrealistic. Price reductions don't mean it's not worth buying. There's definitely plenty of reasons why something's not worth buying, but that isn't one of them typically, and especially now when, to your point, everyone looking at the comps are looking at March. And if there are comps closer than that to today, which in some segments we've obviously seen that there aren't, so there's no new benchmarks made, they want to test those March numbers, which is obviously ridiculous, but people want to do it and make sure they're not leaving money on the table, and it's their property, they can do whatever they want to do, and then it chases down. And in a lot of cases, even if there are benchmarks made, it's consistently been softening since March. So no matter where you are, if you're using benchmarks, that one sold for this, so I want to try and get that, you're behind the ball. And then you're just chasing. Yeah,
and when you're chasing down as well, you're working from a bit of a speculation standpoint, because it's easy to look at these numbers and say the market has decreased 20-25%, but as we've discussed many times, you have to look at specific area. So we're really trying to justify from a buyer's angle how much they feel a property is now worth in this new market. So it's not a case of, okay, we've got some fantastic comparables that are now recent and we're now worth X. There's a little bit of a play, and naturally sellers, of course, want to work with the highest number when it comes to playing with that price.
But the reality behind that is the buyer has the leverage now, and the buyer is correct in thinking we can get as analytical as we want and build a number, but it's not going to be this high in 30 days. And that is correct from where we're sitting right now.
Well, this is a perfect segue into part 2 of this video, which is, I'm trying to think of how best to...
You were very, very verbal about part 2 on the phone with me this morning. I don't know why you've blanked.
No, I know, but we'll come back to that point. But
You're
part 2 of this is just about you.
Ah, finally. It's about goddamn time.
Part 2 is, what is the market going to look like when this is said and done? So before interest rates start...
Can we date back, feel free to cut this clip, for me highlighting last week that we're going to get a 0.5, I'm going to stay on the conservative side of it, as I like to do, 0.5 increase, and then they're holding from there.
Personally, I think they're going to do another 0.5, but whatever they do, my belief is that that's going to be it for the year.
Just want to leave that there again. Continue, sorry to interrupt.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Of course you don't, because you thought inventory was the issue from March to now, and that's a whole other thing anyway.
Okay,
anyway, keep going.
No, we'll bring this up on air, and this is what irks me. You think that they're mutually exclusive.
Obviously there's a sprinkle of both, but it's 80% rates, 20%.
The access to money became very cheap, and because of that, the influx of demand increased and our supply could not keep up. It's a chain reaction, they're not mutually
Which the supply
exclusive.
is the second step in.
But it's
the
still
money
part
is
of
the
it.
first, it's the second step. The money is the problem, supply is secondary. Sorry, keep going. We don't need to talk about that again.
It's a
I've
whole,
already
it's
won
a
that
supply.
conversation.
these fake arguments that you suggest we won. I've never been a part of these arguments. Anyway, now I've lost my train of thought.
What was round two?
Damn, Jay.
Round two. When it's all said and done, if rates hold.
Okay, so going back to before the interest rates started rising,
Yep.
the market was already slowing down.
Yes, it was.
No matter what the government, etc., and local authorities want to say, things were already slowing down.
They're not going to let the market take the rap for that, though. They're going to say they were exclusively the reason. But anyway, continue.
It's supposed to be a free market.
It's not a free market. It hasn't been for decades.
So the question then becomes, how much was it slowing down? Because let's say we had a natural slowdown and the changes weren't made to the interest rates and things would have essentially cooled down into, let's say, a buyer's market. The question, or a balanced market. The question then becomes did the interest rates rising leave a lot of demand not attended to, that when interest rates do eventually come down, couple that with, say, a 25% reduction in pricing, does that then spike buyer activity enough to put us into, I don't think it will put us into a seller's market, but put us into balanced territory? Or is it not enough that it's going to keep us in a buyer's market? Because the other factor of this is not just going to be interest rates. People who are looking at, say, 1.7 million and very minimal interest rates at that point were ready and willing to buy. Well, are they still going to be as ready and willing to buy when the price is now, say, 1.4 million? Interest is higher than what it was back then, but it's not at its high peak now.
I think there is, if you think there is going to be an equilibrium in that equation, but if you think about it, we are almost at 6% rates. Mm-hmm. That's an increase of like 400% in cost of money. And as we discussed, whatever it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the whatever Coquitlam market was the highest drop on that example used was 23%. So there's a lot of variance in that equation with cost of money now to, even if something drops 25%. I do think there will be an equilibrium, and I don't think it's going to be like that dramatic on the money side, but I think it could be, I think we'll be imbalanced. Once people have stability and they know, okay, I feel comfortable that rates are going to stay here or stay around here, or they're not going to continue up, and at worst they hold, that will bring a lot of confidence back to the market. Because from my experience, the lack of knowing where's everything going with policy changes is the big thing. Yeah. It's not the policy change itself.
It's the mental game of the
yeah. So once people wrap their heads around, okay, trusting what the Bank of Canada or Tick Malcolm says from now on is a whole other equation. But if they say, okay, this is what we're doing this time and we're holding, I think that's going to give a lot of confidence to the market. And then you will definitely see, even at these high rates, people coming back in. And then over time, if they hold or continue to drop, I think you'll definitely see that escalation. Because I don't think real estate as a whole has been, its reputation as popular as it is has been damaged. And I'm assuming you'll get into the GDP point in a second. But a long-winded pause in the market like we've seen is not in anyone's best interest, even the government. And I don't think that's what's going to be intended or what's going to happen. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on the balance side of things. We're also very reliant upon real estate as a whole in GDP for Canada. I was reading an article the other day that said we're about 20% more reliant upon it, or 20 times more reliant upon it as a total dollar value than the US is.
Well, if we were allowed to create energy in our country, it'd be a different story.
There we go.
Let's get into that.
Pierre Poliver. Anyway, so we're very reliant upon it. So from a government standpoint, there's a high incentive for the market not to crash. I mean, especially when you think about it, they're going to have to start thinking about these things, because when is it? 2025 is the next election?
I think so, yeah.
So
something like that.
You know, what does that look? Maybe we're a bit far off of that because it was Yeah, but that's something they're going to have to start thinking about. They are very reliant upon it as well. And to your point, real estate is still a safe investment. And as far as recessions and things go, this is a pretty, 20th of October 2025. It's a pretty standard thing. It's not like another Great Depression. It's not like the whole 2008 scenario with the banks and everything. It's just a case of, the natural progression of printing so much money and so on and so forth. So I think when that fear element settles down and the interest rates do come down, it will be enough to move us into that continued balanced territory. And I think we'll sit there for a while.
As we should, but I do agree that's what will happen.
Yeah, and I think that's where we should be. From a buying and a selling perspective, it gives buyers and sellers the chance to go through the motions as you should go through. So, you want to put your subjects on there as well. You want to be able to have a look. You don't want to be forced into, okay, I've got to make a decision on this week, as we've got to put an offer in next week. It just makes it a lot more of a comfortable process, which is where I think we'll end up.
Yeah, and I think what will eventually happen, as we've obviously said, is I think things will, rate-wise, will plateau, and I think that will happen this year, as I've called this year.
No.
You don't. We've talked to a number of mortgage brokers that also disagree with me, but we'll see. I think we're going to stop increasing this year, and then we will be balanced for a while, and then I think balanced market for a while, and I think that stability, the peace of mind, or the stability that comes with them halting this year, will give peace of mind to the market, and I think it will create a much closer to balanced market, and then I believe rates will continue to come down, and then hopefully all this supply chain stuff gets fixed, so there's a bit more flexibility in the world, if you will, and then we will start to see, obviously, that confidence get to overconfidence in the real estate market inevitably again, long term, but I think we're gonna see that pick up. So I think 2023 is the year of the pickup.
Okay. I will compliment you on your video last week.
Because there's a lot of them.
The one on the video last week, you made it abundantly clear how much you've aged. My God.
Like the good old days, actually.
Hello, and thank you for visiting jmckinnis.com. I'm Jay McInnes.
Hey, my name's Jay McInnes.
Hey guys, Jay here.
Hey guys, Jay McInnes, your Vancouver first-time condo buying specialist.
I see you every day, unfortunately, but when I saw that difference of what you look like then versus now.
Decades.
They look like decades. They look like decades. Absolutely horrendous. On all levels. But I will say,
I started in this business in 2007. 15 years of pain.
Here we go.
It was a good video. What can I say?
I cut off the video as soon as I saw that.
Yeah, after that.
I didn't even see what you spoke about. But I think that sums us up for this week, guys. Thank you for watching. As always, if you liked the video, hit like. Click subscribe as well, and that little bell that notifies whenever we post a new video, which is weekly, sometimes more.
We post new videos every 7 days, so press that bell, like and subscribe. We do appreciate the attention, and we will see you next week.